Are we all ready? Yes. Mr. Keenan? Okay. All right. We're at 7:02. I call this board meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Widener.
Dr. Campley?
Here.
Mr. Fountain?
Here.
Mr. Keenan?
Here.
Mr. Liggett?
Here.
Mr. McKinney?
Here.
Mrs. Sadler?
Here.
Mr. Saylor?
Here.
Dr. Weston?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here. 1.03, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. 1.04, the reading of the PVSD mission statement. Mr. Saylor?
The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally.
Thank you, Mr. Saylor. 1.05, approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I so move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Agenda approved. 1.06, approval of the minutes.
I so move.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Minutes are approved. 1.07, tonight we have a special recognition. Mr. McKinney, Vice President, will, along with Dr. Russell, make a presentation on behalf of the Board of Directors, and we would like to acknowledge several exceptional students this evening. And as they are walking to their post, I will acknowledge that we celebrate first our Inter-County Band participants. Inter-County Band Festival brings over 100 middle and high school musicians together from Berks, Chester, and Montgomery counties. These outstanding young talents are afforded the opportunity to make accelerated music together. 21 students were selected from PVSD, excuse me, and this year's festival, the 68th annual, was held in January, hosted by Mrs. Dawn Crone at PV Middle School West, and here are the recognitions.
Yes, and seeing that this is a special group of students, whatever, I would invite the band folks to come up, Mr. Dorenzo and Ms. Crone, to actually announce and shake the hand.
All right, I don't know if they're all here, but I'm going to get started with Jayla Daniels, Jane Nee, Lucy De Leon Maraquin, Alexis Young, Andrew Tate, Lucas Croy, Chloe Boyd, Claire Alvarez, Harrison Irvin, Benjamin Seeger, Theodora enters, and Mrs. Crone's going to take care of the second half.
They're kind of big. They're also very musically gifted. Ryan Shive, Avi White, Kiana LeConte, Lindsay Hoffman, Ilana Finkelstein, James Shingara, Robert Iannieri, Joseph Ferencik, Joshua Stebner, and Jack Spurlock. So why don't we do this, because this is learning how to do things in public. So you'll shake Mr. Dorenzo's hand and then mine, and sorry, your name. Mr. McKinney. Mr. McKinney, thank you. And then Dr. Russell's, and collect your goodies. So start there. There we go.
Congratulations.
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 Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations. Job well done. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Great job.
You'll get your certificate later.
Congratulations, Ali. Good job. Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations. Good job. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Great job.
All of the students, we're going to go out in the hallway and take a picture, a big group picture. Congratulations.
After the other recognitions are finished. Congratulations. Do you want them now? Do you want me to say them? Way to go. All right. Oh, it's Cookie. And thank you to Mr. Dorenzo and Mrs. Crone. We very much appreciate you leading our students. So next, we're honored to acknowledge the achievements of several of our students that attended NMTCC, that's North Monco Technical Career Center. The students recently completed the Skills USA District 2 competition in a variety of areas. The following congratulations will go as follows.
Lucas Tanny, first place in precision machining. Amira Wright, first place in cake decorating. Grant Deneno, first place in outdoor power equipment. Logan Neville, first place in diesel. Riley Bowman, second place in action skills. Avery Lieber, second place in internet working. Ava Russell, third place in cybersecurity.
Thank you.
Congratulations, good job.
You're going to read that last part. And finally, fifth grade students from Schwenksville Elementary have participated in the Ursinus College Martin Luther King Jr. Essay Contest since 2019. I had a mind flip and we were still in 1900s for a second. The purpose of the contest is to encourage young people to celebrate the legacy of Dr. King through inquiry, reflection, and personal expression. Much time is given in class for students to research and discuss Dr. King's message and how his words and actions can be an inspiration and guide for our students' generation. Congratulations to our contest winners. Mr. McKinney?
Yes, and we will have Ms. Venza come up to announce the winners.
I would also like to recognize our fifth grade teachers who are here to support our students and this work that they did. Mrs. Lykowski, Mr. Basil, and Mr. Young are here, so thank you very much to them. And our students are Hannah Orlandini, Charlotte Sensinger, and Emily Tafe, and Bella Venegas.
Bill, I believe you're going to read your essay?
Should we use this one?
Yes.
Okay. Here you go, honey.
Martin Luther King managed to make unequal rights right because of his I Have a Dream speech. His words and actions can be an inspiration to my generation too, because he fought for equal rights for everyone, and so we can do anything too. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." I think this quote means that if you can't do something, then try it a different way. Don't just give up that easy because of how hard it might be. Martin did not give up that easily through the tough times, and he was brave. One of Martin's messages to the world is love everyone. I think this means to always respect others with kindness because you never know what others are going through. Most light-skinned people talked badly and thought bad about dark-skinned people, but you should never judge someone no matter how they look. Dr. King also went through this growing up, so that's why he tried to make things right. In conclusion, Dr. King Jr. faced so many challenges in his life. Later on in his life, he faced even more challenges fighting for our freedom. No matter how hard things were, he never used violence towards anyone or anything. And now we have equal rights for everyone, all because of Martin Luther King Jr.
Thank you very much for sharing your essay with us. Really was very enjoyable and a very nice message. We're going to take a 5-minute recess for photos and congratulations, and we will be back shortly. Alrighty. And with that, we will move on to 1.08, which is comments on any topic. I just want to remind anyone that chooses to speak tonight, you need to please address the board with your name and municipality. And, oh, the sign-in was long. Hold on. And you will have 3 minutes to comment on anything you'd like. I do ask that you keep the sentiment of the comments in a positive light, and if the emotions that you're having would not be appropriate for a classroom or a work setting, that you take a few minutes, regroup, and then come back into the room to finish your comments. I see Kim Mayers is the first signed up. So, Mrs. Mayers.
Thank you. Kim Mayor, skip back. First, I wanted to thank the administration and this current board and past board for supporting unified track and bocce ball. Very grateful for that, so thank you. And look forward to continued support. I did send an email very late, in particular about special education, and so I would ask that you reference your email and read my comments, and I'm just going to touch on a few points in regards to special education. So I did recently go through the long version of the data presentation, and looking through the slides, I saw some concerning aspects, and I'm sure the administration is concerned about this too, but I just want to highlight and ask that some remedies are discussed and brought forward. So we want to increase proficiency in all groups of students and for all students. If you look at slide 73, the special education group of students are lagging far behind the other cohorts of students. And if you look at their beginning of year versus end of year, those students, and I know administration doesn't think this, but these students have the ability to grow and learn, and they show that if you look at their beginning of year and end of year, but the growth is very minimal compared to the other cohorts. So I'm just asking that we really dive into why and what we can do to help these students. Again, I'm not saying that nobody believes that they're not able to. I'm just pointing that out, that that's something I would really like to see looked at. If you look at slide 101, special ed math proficiency is abysmal. It's 26% or 25% proficiency over the last 5 years. Very concerning. And I'm wondering, again, and I did say this, touched on this briefly, but we did just finish last year an entire year dedicated to special education students, professional development for special education teachers, staff, and gen ed teachers. And yet we still, as we heard last week, 62% of the staff are saying that they need more support to educate and give access to students who have IEPs. Also, on slide 195, we're still talking about developing meaningful professional learning for staff, and I know that that's something that's been talked about over the last couple years, which I appreciate, but I'm wondering, is what we're doing working, and can we relook at what we've done so that we can help these students have more success academically? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will. Oh, I apologize.
Crystal Moyer, Skippack Township. I speak to the 6 board members whose decisions recently are leading our children down a path of darkness, anxiety, and confusion. Lead them to truth. Do not confuse them by encouraging them to question what gender God made them. Encourage them to celebrate and embrace who they were created to be. Please stop taking in your hands issues that are not yours. As humans, we cannot fix things of the heart, body, and soul. Only our Creator can fix these issues. You are hurting our children with your attempted fixes, and now more accommodations need to be made. I've requested via email that you share with us your plan to allow our girls to go to the restroom with another girl so they are not alone in a restroom where they may now encounter a boy. I also requested your plan to handle restroom behavior issues, as we have seen how behavior issues in the classrooms and hallways have been neglected. There needs to be a plan, and I have not heard a plan for either of these issues to date. Instead, we hear climate survey reports that have been manipulated by conflicting and confusing questions, not giving a result of the true climate we are hearing from parents and our children. Things are not looking good here for our girls to finish out their education. Unfortunately, as parents, we are not confident that you are thinking about our children, but instead are pushing agendas and ideologies. Please start considering our children and respect our responsibility as parents to train them up in beliefs and religion. Handle behavior and bullying issues, but please stop making your fixes and decisions that create more problems. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. So we are still hopeful.
Okay, anyone else? Mrs. Sheridan?
Janice Sheridan, Skipback Township. Sorry. I'm actually addressing the same issue. What we've done here at PV by rescinding Policy 720. I've done some research, and while science of sexuality is very complicated, anyone here on the board or the administration who has a science background should actually know that the only real way to determine sex is through gametes. The female called ova, or egg producing, and the male gametes called sperm. So I wonder why no one has mentioned what took me no time to research. Ignoring and defying the truth, you've allowed a satanic group lead you to the decision that took freedoms away from true protected class and give freedoms to a self-determined, fake class of people. Sex is determined by gametes. That's it. Everybody has only one. Therefore, sex is binary and not a spectrum. We are born male or female. Gender, on the other hand, is how one feels about their sex, whether they feel masculine or feminine. Beyond that, there are many factors that can modify gender expression. How one expresses his gender is done through outward appearance, the way one dresses, or their mannerisms. We are either typical or atypical, but that does not change what sex we are or what sex we were born. Knowing this, how can you possibly all say all that matters are the children? Parents, do research. In my limited research on SECUS, which is a government-promoted site, and the websites it sends your children to is not really as interested in the health of your child as it is in telling them they have an internal sense of who they are, of what they are. It only serves to confuse an already naturally confused child going through their rites of passage. And this is done intentionally. This reinforces that we are in a battle between good and evil evil is alive and well here, but so is good. Evil wants retribution. They dox you, shun you. They want you fired from your job, as we have found. They harass you online and at home, and they out and out lie. They bring outside satanics in to speak for them, and I cannot understand why those who say they care about children ruled for evil against good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sheridan. Is there anyone else? Mr. Jagger?
Tim Jagger, Lower Frederick. I'd just like to echo the comments of the previous two people and my sentiments that Policy 720 should have never been rescinded. It's a matter of sex. This $125,000 machine that biology department is looking for. Just curious, how many sexes are able to be dissected on that. And something else I was looking at that's coming up tonight, I didn't have time to research it, but I noticed one paper saying that the school district is classified as a third-class district, but looking at the dwindling enrollment, we're under 5,000 students, which would put us into a fourth-class district. Does that have any implications on the district on anything? I was just wondering that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there are no other comments, we'll move on to section 2, which are reports and presentations. Ms. Tremba, do you have anything? Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you back.
Good evening. Since we last met, our students had a lot of accomplishments that we'd like to highlight. They were very busy in the months of February and March. Beginning with athletics, we'd like to congratulate sophomore Max Tansini. He recently finished 5th place in the state wrestling tournament, and he's one of very few PV athletes to earn 2 state medals. The girls' basketball team will also be continuing their state run after beating Manheim Township on Friday. The game is tomorrow against Haverford, and we'd like to encourage the community to get out and support the girls. And finally, senior Andrew Arnold qualified for the state bowling championship, which will be held on Friday. We'd like to wish him good luck and extend our congratulations. The PV music department also had various students qualify for states and regionals. Sophomore Owen Hamilton earned 3rd chair French horn, and senior Sarah Zangrilli earned 1st chair bass. Their regional festival will be held March 21st and 23rd, and we'd like to wish them luck as well. And senior Victoria Hall also participated in the PMEA District Chorus concert, and she performed a special solo as well. Beyond music and sports, there's just a few other activities. The seniors left for their Disney trip on Friday, and they are enjoying great weather in Orlando, which I'm very jealous of. The high school musical, The Prom, will be held on March 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Tickets are out and online, so purchase your tickets, go see it. They always put on a great show. And finally, a group of 8 Japanese exchange students arrived this weekend in PA. They'll be staying with various high school students until spring break, and they'll experience American culture, the high school life, and we'd like to extend our welcome to them and hope that they enjoy their time at PV. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tremba. That was wonderful. I have no president's report this week. 2.03, Dr. Russell, is there a superintendent's report?
There is not another formal report, but I will follow up on some questions, at least one question that's been posed to me about the task force that is planned for, based on Dr. Champagne Lee's presentation of some survey data last week. And I just wanted to let the board and public know that there's an invitation that's set to go out to our staff. We have administrators that will be involved, and I'll talk about it a little bit in our newsletter, my newsletter this week, to invite parents and other community members. So please stay tuned. We are working to get that moving forward and then convene a group once or twice before the end of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. Solicitor's report, Mr. Subers.
I have no report.
Thank you. And 2.05 is board and district committee reports.
I have some comments.
Go ahead, Mr. Saylor.
I'd like to talk about the safety and operations meeting and talk specifically about the conversation that went into the committee and the agenda item for the Evergreen Gymnasium. Not against the Evergreen Gymnasium getting done. I understand that it's a rubber floor and that it's bubbled and it's actually tightening or losing its grip on the outserts, so it's shrinking onto the floor. What I would like to know is some information that I sent over to the administration last week after the work session about how our floors in our gymnasiums and our other schools are. I personally have a concern with the high school basketball court. Out of all the courts in the pack, it's in my opinion and opinion of others, it's clearly a court that needs a lot of love and care to it. You could see basketball players while the games are going on. You could see slipping on the court that normally shouldn't necessarily be happening. So I'm trying to get some information on a breakdown of. We have 8 floors, gymnasium floors in our school district. At what point, or what is the life of those floors look at it right now? What placement years are those floors put in? What's the traction on the floors? What courts bring ROI back to the school district? And what's the replacement schedule for the rest of those floors?
Mr. Weaver, would you like to address concerns and questions now or during your section?
Sure, we can address them now.
Sure.
Mr. Fabrizio and I have considered the email, and we've had lots of conversation, particularly about the competition gymnasium, going back to 2018 when we noticed that there were issues with the roof and the floor. And at that time, we decided that we needed to do a whole package to address the ceiling peeling and the floor at the same time. Ceiling first, then the floor.
What's the competition gym?
Competition gym is where the 2,000 seat stadium.
Gotcha.
Yes, not the
Okay.
auxiliary gym.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes. That was delayed in 2018. We revisited it again in 2021 with Mr. Fabrizio was here. And again, we decided at that point in time that we needed to get ourselves together. The price had grown exponentially from the ceiling and the floor. And we decided to postpone that and hold that, put it into the capital project presentation, and then work on doing that. In the interim, the evergreen floor in particular was shrinking on the sides. That was not necessarily a problem. We put that in the queue to address that over the next 5 years. However, it started bubbling, which meant that there was moisture coming up from underneath, which made it a safety hazard, not just for the gymnasium and the kids that are on there, but it's a cafetorium as well. So kids could be walking around, stepping on the bubbles. The result that our crew did was to cut and slice, air dry, and then repatch, but we can no longer repatch it, so we must address the evergreen floor. The additional conversation of putting our gyms into priorities, we are getting ready to share that information in the Safety and Operations Committee on the 21st with some additional detail. Mr. Fabrizio, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that conversation.
So I have some questions. How many rubber floors do we have? Is evergreen the only rubber floor?
We have 2 rubber floors, South and Evergreen.
And is the cost of replacing the rubber floor with a hardwood or a parquet floor more expensive than replacing the rubber?
Doing so, they're on slab, so I would not recommend doing a hardwood floor on slab. I believe it would have to be built up to put hardwood on top.
Okay. Is there another replacement besides rubber?
We met with several manufacturers from Franklin Flooring, Miller Sports Structures, and another, and they're all recommending going back with rubber because it is a mixed use space. So you have liquids involved, young kids, spills. Correct. So the glue that they use is kind of like a waterproofing membrane. It stops the moisture from coming through. So once they remove the floor, grind it, the new glue will make that an impervious surface. Is it going to be more of epoxy glue, like seal it? Yes, it's a 2-part glue. So they'll let it set up, put the floor down. It is laser or it's heat seamed, so it comes in big rolls. When they roll it out, they seam it to create a unified surface.
Mr. Fabrizio, what's the guarantee on the floor? Is there a warranty on the new floor?
There is. I'll have to look into the specifics on that.
I mean, the way that it was presented, and understanding that there are only 4 board members on every committee, the way that the conversation went, to my recollection, was that this was a failure of this floor.
To be fair, it is the original floor, so it is
In other
about
words,
20-some years old.
Right. It's at the end of
Yeah.
its life, and that's just the way it was. So that's where I guess I'm coming from with
It's due.
a new warranty and a new application. It's obviously
Correct.
a new and better material, but I understand Mr. Saylor's reasoning for not putting the same thing that failed in.
20 years is a long time.
But
though.
20 years, but if it ran its life, then it ran its life.
Yeah,
No,
and-
like if it's going to last another 20 years, then I'm okay with that. That's
Right.
a long time.
No,
But
understood.
with the new technology and the glues and the blocking any
Different type of material would
Yeah.
be used.
So how old is the Schwenksville floor then? I'm sorry. What was the other floor that was rubber?
cell.
How old is the south floor? Or was that redone in the revamp?
I
That
don't
was
think
not
it
done
was.
in the most recent revamp. I believe that was done prior to me coming here, so that would have been in the late 90s.
In the 80s, but okay. So that floor's over 20 years old, and that floor's okay?
Yeah, that floor is okay.
That comes down to application, but
Yeah.
yeah. But I think it's something to consider, though, in looking and sourcing out materials and vendors to apply.
So then let me just get right back to my original part. I know that the high school floor, which is what we call let me rephrase it. I know the competition gym has been on discussion since 2018 because I've been actively, even before I was on the board, looking at that. What would it take just to get the floor redone, not the roof? Because just the actual playing surface where everyone plays.
So I don't mean to interrupt your answer by any means, but I just wanted to let Mr. Saylor know, I did ask for a comprehensive overview with priority for this month's Safety and Operations meeting. So again, so if you're asking for that to be moved up with that option to do one but not both.
I'm just curious because before I place my vote in the upcoming Evergreen, I'm just curious
Where
an
the
option would
priority
be-
list is for the high school.
Correct.
Yep.
Is it a year away? Is it 2 years away?
So we'll share the priority listing. We're currently going through it at this point in time. We have it by building. We also have it by global. So we'll have building priorities, and then we'll match those priorities up. And we do plan on sharing that information. We've had an additional situation happen at the competition gym with the bleachers as well. Remember, these are low bid items when the building was built. And Mr. Fabrizio and his crew have been having a hard time with the motors that spin the bleachers out. So then the question becomes, okay, we've got flaky floor or ceiling that there's not much that we can do about. We looked at looking at a lawsuit, trying to get people involved. Everybody was gone at that point in time. It was after the warranty. We've got a floor that we know that it's coming to the end of life, and now we've got bleachers that we might have to look at replacing as well. So the order of all of that will have to be discussed, and we'll have to figure that out.
So I did submit a KPN request today through EasyIQ to get another price for the ceiling, the floor, and the bleachers as a package.
That would be
So-
very
Well,
helpful.
Bob, I mean, the ceiling, we saw this at Skipback. Or no, was it Skipback?
Yeah, it was. It's
Yeah.
skip backwards.
So you have, I understand to you, the ceiling is very important because you don't want it, part of the, I'm not going to call it paint, whatever it is, coming and hitting. I'm just more concerned about, okay, so do you think the evergreen floor is the most important floor that needs to get done right away?
It is.
And just, because I don't want to have to make a motion to table something to wait for the next safety not meeting to get it break. Just curiosity, how far away are we from replacing what is a dangerous floor right there? How far away are we from replacing that floor?
It's in the priorities.
Yeah, but will I be on the board still, or is it after I'm done?
That's
So,
subjective.
Mr. Saylor, if you feel that it is a priority, then I think that we can work within the priorities to make it more of a priority. That's what I'm hearing, and it seems like it's not just the floor. It seems like the whole thing needs an overhaul.
Well, there's definitely an issue with the stands or the stanchions, but the floor, look, after the business meeting, after the work session, people reach out to me. I had already known that the floor is an issue because I can see with my own two eyes because I travel the pack and go to other games as well.
Yep.
I've been on the floor. There's a lot of spots of that floor that need to be looked at. It's hard to play on. There are some divots in it that make it interesting. You can see a ball bounce differently on one part of the floor than the other. There's issues when the wrestling mats are down there because there's just a lot to it.
Yeah.
I would just, what I'm trying to get at, are we a year away, 5 years away? Hopefully I got 6 years left on the board to answer that question. So how far away are we to fixing that one?
Mr. Saylor, I'm going to jump in here because I'm with you. I was contacted after the work session about the gymnasium floor, the competition gym floor here, spoke to Mr. Weaver and Mr. Fabrizio, and I am really encouraging this to move up on the list, but we need pricing because the bleachers we've learned are now very old. They're not always working. It would be my recommendation, if affordable by this board, to consider doing both Evergreen and the high school this year, if the board is comfortable with the pricing. But I think we're a little tentative until we know the pricing. But it is up there. And it's been high on the list for a couple of years based on evaluations by individuals that do our floors. So again, I think we're a little bit reluctant to commit. However, it is absolutely high on the list. We just want to see the pricing.
Is it the same company that does it?
That does what?
The floor? Or is it two different
For the
companies?
KPN.
Stripping versus just applying new wax?
No,
A brand new floor would be determined by the bid.
Yeah.
But so I would say it's probably not the same firm.
So there's no discount in getting both Evergreen, because they're different firms that were,
In different floors, yep, that they specialize.
And that was my
Mr. Fabri-
point to you, Mr. Saylor. I'm sorry, Mr. Liggett, is that I don't think it has to be one or the other. Go ahead, Mr. Liggett.
Mr. Fabrizio, correct me if I'm wrong. In order to do the floor of the competition gym, we have to address the ceiling first. Is that correct?
No.
No, I just
No.
want to make sure, because if we need to address the ceiling and it would impact the floor, that may have
I
something
mean,
to do with
I'd like to see it all done. It might be cost prohibitive, so we have to wait for those numbers to come in.
I think the original conversation, having been on the Safety and Ops Committee for most of my tenure, is that we were looking to do the ceiling before we did the floor because the ceiling would create a
I don't
certain
wanna
amount of
see-
mess and chaos, and we talked about having scaffolding in, and then
Exactly.
we had a global pandemic, and so we stopped talking about the ceiling in the gym. So I think it would have been done already, to be honest with you. So
just
what-
another thing to say COVID messed up?
Well,
Just
I
add it?
mean, if you're looking about timeline of what things weren't getting done,
Yeah, it was
that's one of
2018
them.
when it first happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So, right, well, I wasn't on the board at that point, but I understand that that's when the problem first arose, is what you're saying. So, the go-ahead plan, though, Mr. Saylor, if you're comfortable with it, would be to look at an overview of all of our capital projects with prioritization of the buildings in general. And then, the board, the committee agenda will be posted, and it can be reviewed, and then there can be input from all board members, even if they're not on the committee, for Mr. Weaver and Mr. Fabrizio, and Mr. Miller, actually, to take into account prior to that meeting. Is that acceptable, or are you looking for commitment that we're going to definitely do it right now?
Oh, I'll figure out a way to get both. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's fine.
I want both too, so
Yeah.
I'm with you. So that's 2 votes. 2 votes for both.
No, I meant I'll get a commitment. Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I can't vote on anything without
Oh,
knowing numbers.
all right. You
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
want to just vote right now?
Now it's at a number. no.
All right, okay.
If I could, while we're talking about safety and operations, I just want to remind the board that safety and operations will shift and be held at district office this month on the 21st, because we're going to do a walkthrough of the district office. Typically, it's held here in the high school, so just as a note.
Is it still going to be recorded?
So we talked about that today a little bit. We thought what we would do is record the bulk of the meeting, and then when we conduct the walkthrough, we would not record. We're not sure how we would do that and how well it would go.
That's
so.
perfectly fine.
Yeah, so
I
we
just
felt-
need the
content.
meat and potatoes part of the meeting
Okay.
with the microphones on.
Yeah, and so Mr. Weaver suggested that maybe we will record that first part, and then when we conduct the walkthrough, that'll appear in the minutes.
I can FaceTime if you'd like to be on the walkthrough.
When is it?
I'm just.
I've done that walkthrough, but when?
21st, March 21st,
I'll save you a
6
seat.
o'clock.
Yeah.
DO.
You'll save me a seat.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other committee comments? We do
I could
have.
go and just not talk, though. Correct?
And to
Laura?
not deliberate.
I would defer to Mr. Subers, but yes.
Yeah, I
that's
could
my
just go and just
understanding.
listen.
And not deliberate, yeah.
I'm sorry, but you can also ask questions. You're just not participating as a committee member. You would have the same rights as any member of the public. So the public has rights to request information and participate at the meeting. So your right would be the same.
Okay, so then that is a question I have, because I went to the policy meeting, and so when we're not actually talking about something that's getting moved forward, but we're just having that open forum conversation and talking about thoughts and ideas, we can speak, because at that point we're not, that's when the public is also speaking.
You can speak to the same extent any member of the public can speak. You're not acting as a member of the committee when you're
Correct.
speaking.
Okay, so that's something then.
Yeah, I'm
we
just going to not talk. It's easier that way for me.
Right, and you
That's
wouldn't
why
be participating in a committee deliberation, you know, if they
Like, when they're saying, are
Right.
we ready to move this forward?
Yeah, I
we
cannot
wouldn't be
talk. It's
talking
very
about-
easy.
But I think that's important for us to know, because there's times, like when I went to the policy, there was a lot of things that I had wanted to kind of help brainstorm when we're talking about, okay, how do we think about these things? It's not deliberation. I think it's something we need to consider.
Do you have anything else to
No,
add?
I don't have anything to add. I mean, the whole purpose of limiting the number of committee members to 4 is so that there's no question that there was a quorum of the board, which could
Sunshine.
consider board action as opposed to just making recommendations to the board as a whole. But and it doesn't matter here, but when you do have a committee whole, it also implicates a sunshine right for public participation. At committee meetings, you're not required to have public participation. We allow it, so that's less of a factor that way. But you do have the right to attend the meeting and to participate to the extent as any other member of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Subers. Are there any other concerns? Thank you for addressing participation in committee meetings. I appreciate that, and I apologize. Yeah. No, of course not. And the fact of the matter is that it is a little bit of a catch-22 because even though you are there, I think it's optically we're all still board members, so it's a little bit of a gray area in terms of conversation and the weight of your conversation in the process.
Yeah, I agree that there's that issue is present, but I mean, again, if you have your committee members sitting at a table, you
Yeah.
know, and you have your non-committee members not there.
Yeah, we've been trying to get away from that.
Okay.
Yeah, we really are just shaking hands. It's like a Girl Scout meeting now.
All
So
right.
crafts. We're going to start crafts of policy in the next couple of months. I didn't let you know. What'd you say? Selling them? No, but we could bake them and give them away for charity, maybe. Oh, you want to buy them? Okay. Well, we'll have to table. Maybe we'll talk to council. Okay. Okay. All right. So, point made. This week coming up, we have on the 14th the special education. Thank you, Mr. Fabrizio. The 14th, we have the ad hoc meeting for the special education parent advisory. Mrs. Sadler is going to sit in for the board along with Dr. Boyd and Dr. Russell. That's on the 14th. The 20th is the superintendent and community engagement forum with Dr. Russell and Dr. Champagne-Lee. That is actually not an evening meeting this month. It's actually at 8:30 at the district office. That's March 20th. The 21st is safety and operations meeting, again at the district office. And I think that covers every meeting this month. Oh, policy. Policy's on the 19th, and that will be here in the library. So I tried to say them in order, but I did not succeed. Alrighty, so that's board and district committee reports. And 3.01, we have the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Consent agenda is approved. And Mrs. Sadler, we are at education.
Thank you. 4.01, the Education Committee of the Whole, and 4.08, the enrollment report, were presented last week at the work session. 4.02 through 4.06 are on consent. And we have approval to, let me go to my section, I'm sorry. We make a motion to approve the draft of the Perkiomen Valley School District Special Education Plan, and we also have an approval, we also are making a motion to approve the revised 2023-2024 instructional calendar.
I so move. We're moving both matters jointly, I take it? Okay.
There's a motion and a second for both. Recorded?
Just to be clear, Mr. Sauer said he moved. Ms. Sadler, you were making a motion and
She
Mr.
moved,
Sauer
I seconded both.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, a motion and a second on both. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Both pass.
My section is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sadler. Section 5, Mr. Liggett.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, do you have anything to add? That we did have the Finance Committee of the Whole meeting last week?
I have nothing to add at this point in time.
Thank you. All right. Items 5.02, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 and also 12, 13 are on consent. Moving back up to the top here, it is asked by the administration and by the Safety and Operations Committee to request a motion to have Miller Sports Construction renovate the gymnasium floor at Evergreen Elementary at a cost not to exceed $145,870 as a CoStar contract. We obviously discussed this earlier, and I so move this.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. And 5.03, I think, was missed.
Yeah.
It
Mr.
was?
Liggett. Yep.
Oops.
It's okay. It was in the middle of all those consents.
Yeah. Kira was trying to save time, and I.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, I know.
Want to start again?
That's all right.
All right, we got it. 5.03. It is requested to approve an easement agreement with Aqua Pennsylvania as presented by the business office and the solicitor, subject to final approval by the business administrator. And I so move.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion?
Discussion? You mentioned last week that you were waiting for the final contract.
We have not received the response back to our comments, so it is subject to final review and approval by the business administrator, and we will continue to consult with Jim in that regard.
Are there any reservations with regard to approving it prior to last look?
That's up to the board. I mean, it's not uncommon for boards to approve contracts subject to
right.
solicitor and district approval and finalization by the district solicitor and the district administration, but it's certainly discretionary with the board whether or not to do so.
I don't personally have an issue giving them the discretion to approve it, but if you do, we can.
I personally have no issue with it either. We have the escape clause if something were to go sideways on the contract, and it also doesn't cost the district any money. The Aqua, they're asking to put in the new a duplicate main in there, and they're going to be repaving the area that's above it. I see it as a win for the district, actually, and they already have an easement there anyhow because of the water main that's already existing. So we're really not approving anything different except for them to go in and put in the redundant main.
Would you like a vote, Mr. Saylor? You're okay with it? Okay. All right, so then all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, motion passes.
And last week we had a report on the grants and donations, and this week there is a request to approve Levin Legal Group PC for matters related to the provision of the educational services at the Southeastern Youth Development Center. To get discussion rolling, I will move this.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion?
Hey, can we get an update on what exactly this is?
Yeah, so I'll start, and Mr. Subers can certainly assist. The administration is looking into different options to provide the educational programming at Southeast Youth Development Center. Either the district employs the individuals that serve in that capacity, or we contract with the IU, which is permissible per school code. The IU has submitted an agreement for consideration by administration. They are served with a solicitor that also is employed with Fox Rothschild, as is our solicitor. So in the interest of avoiding a conflict of interest, they have secured outside services with a different firm to develop the agreement. I am requesting that we do the same as a district.
I would just add that it would be a conflict for my firm to represent either entity because we represent both entities.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, in order to do this, like you said, to avoid the conflict of interest, by allowing this motion to go through. We're allowing the district to essentially begin negotiations and figuring out how we are going to staff or contract out the services at the Southwest or the Southeast Youth Detention Center.
Yeah, that's correct. So the attorney that I am proposing administration and the board works with will assist with reviewing the contract that has been submitted by the IU to make sure that the appropriate protections are in place for the school district, as well as consider assisting in negotiations we may engage in with our staff, our bargaining unit, the association, in the event we do decide to take that path. So I really am looking forward to advice from this individual before coming to the board with a recommendation on which path to take, which I anticipate will occur in April.
Is there how many hours are we, right now it's open-ended. How many hours do we think it's going to be?
We don't know. However, there were legal fees set aside in the budget that's been proposed with the funds from the state for this purpose.
But they haven't been approved.
Well, they haven't formally been approved. However, right now, they have informally been approved. I'm just suggesting, I'm sharing with the board that reminder that in the budget that was proposed, there are legal fees.
How much?
At this, I think it was 15,000, but I have to check on that, Mr. Saylor. Just don't quote me on that. I can follow up with the board on that. But
Okay.
there were some set-asides for this very purpose.
So I'm going to make an amendment to this motion to move to approve the lien legal services not to exceed the budgeted item, the budgeted legal, give me the thinking.
Expenses.
Thank you. The budgeted legal expenses approved in the budget for the juvenile detention center, the youth detention center.
Second.
Well, now, do the persons who made the motion and second agree to that as a friendly amendment?
Did you move it?
I did move it. I'm not a fan of the friendly amendment process, but I will allow the friendly amendment.
Wait, did you?
I believe I seconded it.
Okay. Okay.
Just procedurally, I'm not a fan of friendly amendments, so but I understand that we've used it before and it's perfectly fine to use.
So the amended motion is now on the floor.
Okay, so there was
So I'll discuss. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with this motion or anything that has to do with the Southeast Youth Development Center if it's going to cost Perkiomen Valley taxpayers a penny until we get more information. So I am more comfortable with it having a cap, which is the cap that the state has said they would reimburse the school district, although they haven't passed that, they would reimburse the school district. I just want to ensure that at this moment, we're not taxing, we're not taking money that will go towards the competition gym or the Evergreen court or the music department or anything else away that has to do with the Southeast Youth Development Center.
Well, don't forget, that would be totally different budget line items it would come from.
Yeah, budget line items mean nothing to me. Money is money. It goes out from them into them. It's the same thing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. If we don't pass this, we're essentially tying our hands behind our back because we wouldn't be able to negotiate properly both the staffing issues and how we're going to approach this because of the conflict of interest between the IU and us with Fox Rothschild. To me, I think we need to do this.
Well, and I think Mr. Saylor is proposing to do it subject to the limitation.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a dollar limitation, but either way, we still are talking about an up or down vote.
I just verified the budget that was proposed to the state did indicate $15,000 towards legal fees, so we could incorporate a not to exceed if the board is comfortable with that.
I mean, I personally feel like we should put ourselves in a position to be well advised, and I'm concerned if council is explaining that we can't be.
Well, no, well.
Because of a conflict of interest. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not arguing against the retention of independent counsel. I'm explaining why it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the present motion as amended provides you that opportunity. If perchance something happened and it exceeded that budget, you just have to come back and get additional authorization.
Yeah, you're looking at anywhere between 85 and 70 and 85 hours. So they would have to come back and explain to the board why, if there's 70 hours or 85 hours, they're still not gathered enough information.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the amendment if you are able to get to a place where you're comfortable with it. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on it.
I think we also need to have, just to safeguard ourselves.
I mean, if we hit the cap, then we have to revisit it, so.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know what the duration for that will be, but hopefully by then we'll have more solidification as to.
Right, we'll have more information, but in the meantime, planning-wise, if we don't start planning and getting ahead of it, it's gonna be a nightmare.
I just think it puts us in a very bad position.
To try and put together a program in the 11th hour.
If we're putting together a budget and we see that we're at 27,000 in legal fees, you know, we have to go back to the state and say, hey, we have an updated budget for you.
I don't disagree with you about putting a cap on it at all.
Yeah.
So if $15,000 is the number, without question,
That was what was
in the
said.
budget, I'm pointing this way, I don't
Got
know. If that's the number, I mean, we get a statement of, that's how it's worked for me personally, and they send you, we pulled this out of your retainer. How does that work?
So, yeah, absolutely. So remember that this item came to us in November, 5 months into our current budget. So when we talk budget and set-asides, I certainly understand the means to cap it, the request to cap it. However, when we put together the budget, it was estimated upon a certain process that we might not end up following. We might end up going out with an outsource model, which, you know, we're looking at, whereas before the initial proposal that the state demanded we provide to them was based upon all of Perkiomen Valley School District employees working there. So the budget, as it eventually ends up, and the grant monies, remember there's a grant from the state to cover the cost for these, it will look completely different if we end up going one way versus the way that we thought in December when we had a whole 3 weeks to put it together. So I think a cap is wise, but there will be other budgetary items within that grant that we will need to look at, especially once we make a decision on how we source, whether we outsource or internally hire those people. Will look completely different, and I have a problem with that.
And I think what I'd like to do after, presuming this agenda item is approved and I have a conversation with Mr. Levin, I would like to discuss in executive session in April the recommendation of administration, because we will have been advised by then, we will have protections in the agreement, that's what I'm predicting, or we will have had conversations with our bargaining unit to know a little bit more about what would work best for the school district and these students. So we can report back in greater detail at that point. There are some things that I believe and feel very strongly about we need legal advice on. And to expand upon Mr. Weaver's points, it can be made very clear to the attorney that I would work with that we have a cap, we have a not to exceed. So please let us know if we're getting close to that for whatever reason.
Maybe at like the $10,000 threshold or something like that.
I'm very happy to do that out of respect for this not to exceed number, and I completely agree. And then let's see where we land from there. So I appreciate the cap and can communicate that openly with the individual.
Are we all in agreement? Mr. Saylor, are you okay with that? I know you made the amendment, but.
I'm okay with it. I can't tell if we're in agreement. We'll find out.
Actually, he didn't anymore because it's a friendly amendment.
A friendly amendment, okay.
Very friendly, Bob.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like
Does
friendly amendments.
Does anyone take issue with it, or does everybody feel like that's a?
I can have unfriendly amendments for a later date.
Don't make me call a question.
All right. We had a time change this weekend. We have to let's. Eye on the prize here. Okay, so we had a motion and a second, an amendment. Everybody said it was okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Awesome. Great.
Thus endeth my section.
Thus endeth his section. Thank you, Mr. Liggett. And we are on section 6. Mr. Fountain has been ready, patiently waiting.
Okay, 6.01 is a motion for ratification of bills and payroll and authorization of payments, and I so move.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Against? Motion passes.
And 6.02 is a recommendation for a motion to approve treasurer's report and financial statements, and I so move.
Motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Against?
And that ends my session.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Fountain. Mr. McKinney, professional personnel.
Yes, 701, 702, 703, 704, 705, and 706 are all on consent. And that finishes my section.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. Section 8, support personnel, Dr. Weston.
Section 8 on support personnel, items 8.01 through 8.05 are on consent, and that concludes Section 8.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. Section 9, governance, Dr. Campley.
Where we were getting here for a while there.
I know, well, it was all that friendliness.
You guys are way too friendly on a time change night. We should have a vote on time change weeks to not be friendly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have the power to eliminate the time change, or
That'd be
can we
really
vote on
nice.
that?
Yeah, I'll vote. Okay, 9.01, first reading on policies. If there are not any questions, we will move them through to a second read next month. Comments, questions? All right, seeing none, 902 was on consent, and we will move to 903. There is a motion to approve an agreement for an alternative educational placement, and I so move.
A motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, motion passes.
My section is over.
Thank you, Dr. Campley. Closing items. 10.01, comments from the audience. Does anyone in the audience have anything to add in this section? Seeing none. 10.02, comments from board members. Mr. Saylor?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention a conversation I had with Mrs. White last week after the work session because I received some more information. I was telling Ms. White, that some students approached me a week prior about some issues in terms of drug use and vaping in our school bathrooms. It sounds more towards the third floor quarter of the high school, but I've heard now from multiple students in our school district from all realms of life, from students that are athletes to students that are in the arts programs to students that sadly aren't doing, or unfortunately not sadly, aren't doing any extra activities, but that the third floor seems to be the worst floor in our school district in terms of drug use, to the point where students are vaping with their head in the toilet, blowing the smoke in the toilet water. And when I was told this, my brain exploded because it's the toilet water that they're blowing vape in. And we're at a point in time that it to me, it seems like not just Perkiomen Valley, but all schools are waiting for that ticking time bomb of something bad to happen, because we're very much concerned by what would be a stigma of PR in how you solidify having these issues. I have spoken to Dr. Russell in the past when I was the board president about having police dogs, for lack of a better word, but drug sniffing dogs enter our school district to go out and try to alleviate the issue. These are issues that are really important to me because we have an issue that is a solvable, well, every issue provides solutions. We have an issue that have some provided solutions that may seem steep, but do solve the issue. That we have students that bring drugs into our school district and are using those drugs on an everyday basis, and it's preventing students from doing normal things like stopping to wash their hands in the bathroom, or to even go to the bathroom. Or if hey, that third floor, that's where a lot of kids are doing X, Y, or Z. More importantly, they're losing the educational time because they're literally leaving the educational time in their classroom to go vape and then come back to the educational time. It's nonsensical issues that are happening, and that's why I ran for the school board, to fix these nonsensical issues. There are outside solutions outside of the school. It's not always the school's fault. The administration can only do so much. We have SPOs now. We have security guards. We have teachers. We have monitors. We have lunch aides. All these people, but they can't be everywhere at all times. We know that's just not humanly possible. And when the school district gets blamed for everything under the sun, sometimes it literally frustrates me so much that I'll pull my hair out. I know I don't have any hair left, but I would pull my hair out. The school can't do everything. They can't be everywhere. We're not going to have, I don't know how many classrooms and bathrooms we have in the school district, but they're not all going to be one-to-one. Someone's not going to be there to watch it. But we need to start thinking outside the box of things to do to solidify the safety of our student body, regardless of what type of connotation that brings on our school district. If there are children that are so addicted to vaping that they're facing their head in an unsanitary bowl of water and blowing into that to elude a vape or smoke detector, that's a problem. And people don't want to be around that problem. And it falls on us to find a solution to this problem. We've heard about the problem ad nauseum, and we can create all the documents in the world. At some point in time, we're going to have to do something as a school board to get this problem solved. So I wanted to, God bless you, Dr. Weston. I wanted to bring this up in public. Dr. Russell, not to criticize the school district, because it's not the school district's fault. It's not. We can't be, the school district can't be everywhere at all times. It's not humanly possible. We can't afford in our school district to have bathroom monitors at all times. But we need to do something to fix the problem. It's heartbreaking that this issue is happening, and there are issues that are happening all throughout our Commonwealth that are solvable issues. And it seems like a lot of times the adults in the room, the adults who are the district attorneys, the state officials, throw their hands up in the air and say, well, you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this and you can't do that. And it's frustrating to a T. We just had 9 students shot at a bus stop, and now they're saying, well, it really wasn't a bus stop. It was just part of Northeast High School. It wasn't really a bus. It's baloney. There are students that were shot leaving Northeast High School. They were taking their SEPTA bus home, okay? School district officials, these are problems that are happening in our school district. So you have drugs, you have weapons, you have alcohol. There are things that we could do with our issue right now, which seems to be drugs or vaping. We can do things. It is in our power as a school board, as school board directors, to help the administration, to give them the tools to solve this issue.
Mr. Saylor, thank you for bringing it up publicly, and I took the conversation that we had last week very seriously, and I know that Dr. Russell did as well. And so, Dr. Russell, I don't know if you're able to speak a little bit to some of what you've learned in the last week, and I know you shared a little bit of what you were researching in the memo, but if you could expand upon it.
Yes. So I did talk to Mr. Miller, who is our chief of police and has experience with drug sniffing dogs, if you will, and he's going to reach out to the state police, and he needs to learn whether or not dogs can actually detect vapes, or do they only detect vapes that have THC or illegal substances. He's learning that, and he's going to follow up with us. But I appreciate the outside the box sort of thinking, Mr. Saylor. And we want to do everything that we can to reduce any of this use that you're hearing about or that our students are actually engaging in. We want to reduce it. In addition, we've also talked about the vape detectors that are connected to cameras. So the detectors are inside the restroom. The cameras are positioned outside of the restrooms. So they can monitor who goes in and who goes out. When those detectors inside the restrooms detect vape, they send a signal to our principals, to our administrative staff. They have to respond to that. If they don't get there in time to actually intercede or intervene with an individual who's actually vaping, we have the camera footage that can be reviewed. We've tested one situation, one setup, if you will, here at the high school, and we're looking into replicating that throughout the building, or putting it in other places. So we are exploring these things, and absolutely going to look into the dogs, and I'm looking for feedback from Mr. Miller, and we'll report back to the board once I learn more and he learns more about what's possible.
So, does somebody have something else to add to that, Dr. Campley?
So I know this is a conversation I've emailed with you before about, and it's a concern that I have had, and I'm not quite sure. I know I brainstormed some different ways, cost-effective ways that potentially could help with some of the concerns. Do you have, or have you tried to get any feedback on the idea of having it be, I know I had talked to you about having it be a duty where the teachers are assigned a bathroom and every hour, you know, so say there's 7 female teachers and 7 male teachers, and they go to bathroom A, and teacher 1 is bathroom A, and they, during period from 8 to 9, at some point during 8 to 9, doesn't matter when, they have to go in and do a spot check and sign off that they've been in there. If there is an adult that is going into that bathroom at least once an hour at any given point where the students don't know what time within that hour they're going to show up, I just think there needs to be some more eyes. And I know that was a recommendation I had given, and I wasn't sure if there was any follow-up at the high school level to see, is that a duty that could be assigned to the teachers, that they could, you know, it's quick 5 minutes. They can, if they have bathroom A, it's not like they're taking a whole lot of time, but they just go in, they just go pop in, open each stall door, sign something that says with the time they were in there, and then, on Monday, it might be that they get checked at 8:05. Tuesday, maybe the teacher goes in at 8:30. The kids never know what time an adult is going to pop in, but every single bathroom would have an adult come throughout the day. I think there's some things that we can get kind of creative and outside the box that are cost effective with the staff that we have. I just don't know whatever happened with some of those suggestions that I sent.
You know, in my view, I don't feel like it's any one solution that's going to fix the issue. I think it's a mentality and a cultural shift. And to me, what I keep hearing and I keep trying to refocus on, which is why I'm grateful that this is really a tangible thing that we can wrap our hands around and work to solve, is it comes down to behavioral expectations and consequences. And I feel as though, you know, and I've had this conversation, you know, from a philosophical standpoint with many, that restorative practice and PBIS and MTSS, those are not instead of consequences. Those are in addition to consequences to have expectations, behavioral expectations in place, but that doesn't eliminate accountability for our students. And I think that that's something that very often in conversations about different philosophies for discipline, it gets lost in the shuffle. And I don't know that that's necessarily everyone's application, but I think without appropriate policy in place, that very often it can easily be justified that there's an accountability piece and a tracking piece of the accountability missing.
No, I agree with you.
And so part of what I would like to personally see is that there is a more of a global accountability for every child in every building, that everyone is able to access, so we can start to see some trends. You know, if there's a problem in 6th grade, is there a problem in 8th grade before they come to the high school? You know, those types of things. And I think that overall, accountability in conjunction with behavioral expectations, I think that's really where
it's finding the balance between the two.
Right.
It's definitely finding the balance, and it's, again, like you were saying, tracking that data, because as we've spoken before, sometimes there's red flags with students behaviorally, and you know that they're kind of your high flyers that you want to keep an eye on. But also, I think there's that piece of students need to know that they need that structure, and that knowing that somebody's watching and keeping an eye out. Big Brother's there, and they're looking, and they're a little less likely to, if they know someone's watching, and then in addition to that there's going to be a consequence tied to it. You need both. And I'm not saying I am a 100% on board with restorative practice and PBIS, but there are some things that there's just, There's no wiggle room. There's no gray. You got caught with a vape, you get X, Y, and Z.
And you got caught with a vape from 3 different people, and you were able to kind of fly under the radar. There needs to be a way to build a story and have there be accountability for all 3 infractions to equal one thing. You can't just spread out when you decide not to follow the rules as to fly under the radar. And I think, to me, based on the conversations that I'm having, that is one of the things that seems to be pervasive. And,
There-
and go ahead.
Yeah, there are schools in the Commonwealth that have removed mirrors from the bathrooms.
That's another tangible thing you brought up at policy, and I
because
think
of
that's
TikTok videos, right?
Right.
That leads to, you know what you could have removed instead of the mirrors? The cell phones. Having no cell phones in the buildings creates an environment where I don't have to remove my mirrors, right? Or when a student goes to the bathroom, say, perfectly fine, you don't need your book bag, sorry. You don't need your book bag to go to the bathroom, and please empty out your pockets before you go. You don't need anything in your pockets either to go to the bathroom, because you're just going to the bathroom. I mean, we assume, wrongly, in my opinion, that students are going to the bathroom to go to the bathroom. And for the most part, I think they're going to the bathroom to get out of educational learning, to go film a TikTok video, or sadly now to put their head towards toilet water and blow out on a vape. And it's a small percentage of kids. Maybe it's only 60 kids, right? But those 60 kids make it really uncomfortable for everybody else to do what they want to do. And the consequences to when somebody gets caught should, at first, be really, really bad. Hey, if you're in the arts program or the athletics program, or you're in an extracurricular activity and you get caught with a vape pen, 365, you're done for the year. That's it. No, we're not asking questions of why it happened, how great of a kid you are. Super, we're not saying you're bad, but we're putting an end to this nonsense.
well, and I think that's where it comes down to expectation setting and behavioral tools for student. And we have professionals that I have great faith in.
You're asking me? Yeah, it shouldn't matter what's in it. It's illegal. It should not be in the school district. And I understand the caveat that you're talking about. Because our policy states that cigarettes, that tobacco, and vape are 2 different items. So I understand that part that you're talking about. We tried to get that fixed last year. But I understand the lawyer mind in you. Is saying if I buy the vape and it just has the juice in there, it's not illegal. It's illegal to purchase. It's not illegal to have. Our school code should make it very, very clear. You know what? I have a funny feeling it's not.
So when we talk about making our policies more robust to allow for more safety in the buildings and to match the behavioral expectations that we have, these are the things that I'm talking about.
Dr. Russell, I think we think of vape as a tobacco product, so it's a detention, not.
You're talking about for the consequence paired with. So that's revisiting consequences in addition to the language.
But that's not policy, Rowan. That's the handbook.
Right.
That could be changed on the fly. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's not illegal for a 14-year-old to have a vape stick that just has strawberry Cocoa Pebbles juice in there, if I got that right. But from our perspective, it should be a 3-day suspension, and you also lose if you're you lose something. It's got to be really hard. And then don't forget, sometimes there are a vape pen, which would be very clear, and then you could buy. They actually looks like a highlighter, like you're highlighting your work. If we weren't 1-to-1, you were highlighting your work, and it's a vape pen as well.
You got to push his microphone on.
No, we're not. I would encourage you to always have your mic on, though.
Are we encouraging smoking or something by that? I mean, what, and why? I mean, I'm the type of kid that would have come to school with just a vape with, cherry juice in it or something. Mint mist. I don't know what they put in those things. But,
yeah, but we wouldn't
and
allow...
just to say, okay, expel me for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I have a funny feeling if a kid had those pods in their mouth that are non-tobacco, that the school would say you got to take that out. And that's not tobacco. It's smokeless. It's not tobacco. It's nicotine.
Well, I don't know.
It's not smoking.
I don't know where those fit in.
I think that's it's a new
Nicotine, does our policy say nicotine?
All right, well, put me down in history, because I'm going to agree with Keenan here. I think there's a balance when if you have the kid who's going to bring it in, and they're going to push, and they might have it in their pocket or whatever. You have to watch how severe the consequence is for again, you're back to balance. The kid who's like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to be in school anyway. I'm going to bring in just the empty thing with just the mint whatever, and just to see how far they can push the envelope. You're now working and dealing with a kid who maybe social emotionally, there's a lot more going on, and now you're saying, okay, well, now you can't have any recourse to get the supports and have the you just have to be careful to say, like, okay, well, you can't do sports for 365. Like, you're
creating an environment, though. This is, and I understand, because that's what you do for a living and it's your life every day. But from my perspective, I'm black. You know me by now. It's been 2 years. I'm very black and white. If you want to alleviate the problem, you alleviate. You don't set silos and say, well, if this kid has
except you then create a new problem.
What's the new problem?
The new problem is you have some of these kids who are either dropping out, doing self-harm, suicide. You do need to keep in mind.
Oh, but it's extremes. To the point of the conversation, it's the extremes. 365.
Is
extreme. Listen, I grew up, I think, in a very similar generation. We grew up in the same generation, in the fact that zero tolerance is zero tolerance, right? That's how it was when we went to school. And to Dr. Campbell's point, there are kids that will go out of their way to seek negative attention associated with, to Mr. Keenan's point about you bring it in just to see what you can do. And so there has to be a little bit of an assessment, a component to the zero tolerance, but zero tolerance is still in fact zero tolerance. In my high school, it was not 365, it was by the quarter. And you were able to redeem yourself and figure out what you needed to get together so you could participate in the last thing.
I'd be good with
and
that.
there were kids that I was friends with that were good kids, but they couldn't be in the talent show, or they couldn't be in the play, or those were the consequences. And so, I don't know that it has to necessarily be, in-school suspension for carrying a vape pen when there's a kid that doesn't want to go to class to begin with. That doesn't solve the problem. It just doesn't. All it does is it reinforces that a behavior gets them what a bad behavior.
When you start creating these tentacles, you're creating tentacles that say it's okay for this person to vape because they have other problems that might be persistent. And that's honestly, that's the biggest problem with public education today. We create these silos of reasonings why there's bad behavior, and that's why bad behavior never gets better. You notice schools aren't safer today. They don't have better behavior today than they did 20 years ago. It's worse. It's worse because we create all these tentacles and reasonings and thought processes because we're showing so much empathy, and I understand that. We have a problem. I have a way to solve it. Some people might not agree with that way to solve it. It's very extreme. It's, it's a big slap on the wrist, whether it's 1 quarter, 2 quarters for the year, whatever it is. But you have to, person A has to be treated the same way as person F. Whether person A has no IEP, no SEL issues, has 2 parents, high income, and person F is the total they have to be treated the same way. They can't be treated differently.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that, because there are differences with people. But at the end of the day. But my thought process that I think there's a component there that's missing is the way a lot of us were raised 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago is the family dynamic and component looked very different than it does now. And the parenting was very different than it is now. And what teachers deal with as far as getting support from parents for doing some of this stuff, that is a really true concern. And, you can say one size fits all, but if we were sending a kid home to a house where they don't have a parent there to support them and give them the structure and guidance that they need, and we're going to do this, okay, we're going to be super hard on him and he's going to whip it into shape, and he's going home to a house where there's no love, compassion, on his own. Nobody's there, going to his room, playing on the computer, and nobody talk. I mean, this is the life that we're in right now. That is not a kid that anybody's going to reach, and we're going to lose that kid to all kinds of things. And that's what we have to kind of keep in mind. And again, it's not saying go all one way or the other, but it is finding a balance and finding a way to meet them and having, there are consequences, but we also do need to consider a student's social emotional well-being in the context of where we are in today's society.
I think the point was made, though, and I think that their conversation needs to continue and the work needs to be done. Thank you for bringing up the point about current situation that is not new. Is there anybody else that would like to comment this evening? Mrs. Sadler, anything? Mr. Fountain? Dr. Weston? Mr. McKinney? Mr. Keenan? Mr. Liggett?
Yeah, just one brief thing. I appreciate the conversation that just happened here during the board comment period. And I think administration also is appreciative of hearing the feedback from the board outside of motions and committee meetings and just hearing a bit of the dialogue that's going on here. To me, this portion here of public comment from the board kind of mirrors in some ways the public comment. So this is, I think, a little bit unusual in that we had this kind of a dialogue rather than us just saying what our comment is. One of the takeaways I've been getting from the dialogue that we did have here tonight is how important it is for administration to be using the regulations and the policies and the handbooks that they have here, because what we're discussing here tonight was a very granular issue down to the specific floor that a vaping was taking place. And typically we entrust administration to go about its business and handle things at the granular level, and us as the board are to give you the general direction. I hope that from the dialogue that happened here tonight, you did get the sense of the general direction that we want to see more enforcement on this, a way to address the vaping problem. And then it's your job to do it. And we have the confidence that you can do that. So that's my comment for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liggett. Okay, if there are no other comments, 10.03 is notice of video recording disclaimer, 10.04 is adjournment, and then I will also, for the record, just state that we had an executive session prior to the meeting to discuss personnel. And with that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.